Dawn Snyder. And was just going through a divorce and a little bit of a midlife sabbatical, where I had decided I've been in the oil and gas industry long enough where I knew how to explore and to drill and complete and produce and in some ways even transport and refine, but I had no idea how we made the deals. And so I came to Midland, Texas in a divorce and back to becoming Don McShinsky, which was my maiden name, and became a landman. And I just also finished my MBA. So I thought it was very good transition. And I met a lot of other women in Midland who said that a man had brought them. And I thought, oh, I said 1 year in Midland, I am back to Houston. I am not staying in the gates of hell. And I met a man. And now I am here to stay. My name is Dawn Porter.
Nice. Jeanette, unfortunately, we were on mute for the first couple of minutes of that panel. So I'm going to do a reintroduction again. This is our Toastmasters Pivot Moments panel. I am your moderator, Yoshi Pradhan, and I'm also a member of Toastmasters. We have 5 esteemed Toastmaster members, and you've heard Dawn's wonderful story on how she arrived to Midland, Texas. Jeanette was on mute for a little bit, so I'm going to have her tell her story so we can have everything on record. For those of you who can't make it, we do have a recording link that we will post on our social media, so please be sure to check that out and reach out to us and how you can join this awesome community. Jeanette, would you like to tell your story and how you arrived to Midland?
Yes, thank you, Madam Moderator, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests. In 1993, my husband came home from work and he said to me, Jeanette, we are moving to Midland. And I said to him, Michigan, because he is from Midland, Michigan. And he said, no, Texas. Never heard of Midland, Texas. Looked it up on the map, wasn't thrilled. So in 1994, we moved into our home. It was the 1st of June, and it was 114 degrees. You moved us to hell. And he replied back to me with a grin on his face, no, just to the gates. So we raised our family here. We've grown our careers here. Midland truly became our home. And that's how I got to Midland, Texas.
Wonderful. Yes, and right now it is about 90-something degrees outside, so we may just as well be near the gates of hell. Rebecca, do you want to tell your story?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Moderator, fellow Toastmasters on the panel, and especially all of our guests. My name is Rebecca Pontoski. I moved here from Colorado in 2007. Moved here for an awesome job with Midland Memorial Hospital, and I have been here ever since. I enjoy it. I think it looks almost like Pueblo, Colorado. It's pretty desert, and it's great. I have to tell you, working at the hospital, you absolutely find many opportunities to meet people. But I have to tell you, ever since we got here in 2007, I've been kind of building my own little directory of people. But since 2018, and this is for another talk, I've actually found more people than I have when I first started in 2007. But that's for another talk. So yes, came here in 2007. Of a job with Midland Memorial Hospital, and I've been here ever since. Back to you.
Awesome. Do you want to tell your story, Mark?
Sure. I'm Mark Edgar. I was born here. So from the time I was a little kid, Midland was all I knew. The heat was just the way things were. The dryness was the way things were. I didn't know the difference between this and the gates of hell. And I was actually born in the hospital where Rebecca works. I lived here through high school, then I went off to college in Central Texas, and then I lived in Dallas, Central Texas, Detroit, Michigan for a little bit. Back to Central Texas, and came back to Midland in 2010 to be closer to my parents. So I've been back about 11 years, but my time here in Midland is divided into 2 big chunks.
Awesome. And last but definitely not least, Carol.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, and especially thanks to Higher Grounds. I did come here because of a man. We had been transferred, we lived in 12 homes in 5 different states. And we moved here with an oil company in 2001. 20 years, that's the longest time we've lived anywhere, so I truly call Midland home. Our kids were almost grown, and like Rebecca, we've met lots of people and have enjoyed every minute.
Excellent. Now we're going to get to the meat of this panel, in which why we have this theme, pivot moments. I want each one of the panelists to describe a pivot moment in their life relating to Toastmasters and how they ended up joining this wonderful community. Carol, let's start with you.
Okay, I will just pivot back to 2001 with my husband, Tom, was in oil. He was an environmental engineer. And many of you, if you know the oil industry, it has its ups and it has its downs. He got laid off at the time in 2003. And I said, oh, I'm too young and you're too young. What are we going to do and how are we going to manage the money? I decided at that time I needed to get a full-time job. I had been a teacher, I had been a tax preparer, a tax teacher, all kinds of things, but never had to manage the money that was coming out of retirements. So in the fall of 2000, no, it was right after my daughter graduated from high school. Somewhere in the summer of 2003, I decided to get a job and have been working as a financial advisor now for 18 years, I guess. It was at that time, 2 of the ladies in my office asked me if I knew about Toastmasters. Well, I had heard about Toastmasters when we lived in Oklahoma. And I thought, they asked us out to dinner and I thought, oh, this is just a drinking group. We learn how to make toast. So we politely declined. Once we got to Midland and these ladies in my office said, oh no, that's not at all what it is. It helps you learn how to speak and how to be a good leader. And I said, I think I need that. If I'm talking to other people about their money, I want them to trust me. With that, I joined Pop-Up Toastmasters. Meets at 6:30 in the morning. It met very close to my office. So once I was done with Toastmasters, I could just go straight over to the office. And I would say that has been my pivot moment, especially for joining Toastmasters. I've learned a lot about speaking, not so many ums and ahs and filler words in between things. I have also learned how to be a better leader. With that, I will turn it back to you, Madam Moderator.
Awesome. That's been a wonderful story. And I believe some of the elements from Carol's story is pretty applicable to all of us on this panel, including myself. Mark, do you want to talk about your pivot moment?
Am I allowed more than one?
You can talk about a couple. Feel free.
Right, from the time I was a little kid, I have always had trouble running groups. When I was in preschool, my teacher sent a message home with my parents that said Mark was not like to call attention to himself. And somehow I made it through high school and college without having to do a lot of that. I did take a speech class in college, but it didn't help a lot. And then when I got my first job out of college, we had a meeting, an employee meeting, and they didn't tell me that it's a new employee, I would have to introduce myself. And it was all I could do to get through that. I was so nervous. And so I found a Toastmasters group. Someone brought me to the meeting. The first time I did table topics, I was so nervous. Table topics, by the way, is extemporaneous speaking. Speaking off the cuff when you don't have any time. I was so nervous that I felt like someone was pushing down on my head. It felt like my neck muscles were so tight. It seemed like someone was forcing my head down. But I got through my first icebreaker with a great mentor. And when I got done with the speech, he raised his hand. He was as excited as I was. And he said, I know you wanted me to give you an excuse to quit the whole time. And he was right, I did. But I got through that icebreaker, and that was my first pivot moment. The second one is I went to a contest, a Toastmaster speech contest. I had no idea what to expect. So I stood up to the lectern, I used the microphone, I had notes. And then the other contestants got up there, and I saw that for them, it was a completely different thing. No lectern, no notes. They walked around, and I realized it's not a speech, it's a performance. So I realized then, I started to realize what the difference between a speech and performance is. And then the final pivot moment was about 5 years ago. I entered a humorous speech contest, and I didn't know how I'd do, but I won at the club level and then went on to win at the area level in Odessa, which is near. Then I went to a bigger city where it's really, really hard for people from Midland to win. And I didn't think I would win. I won there. And then I took it to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And by that time, I felt like the speech was almost a thing that I was taking with me, like a car that I'm taking to run at the race. It was this, I crafted it and built it. And I did not win, place, or show in New Mexico in Albuquerque. I did not place at all. I think I should have, but just being able to take this thing and refine it from level to level was a huge pivot moment. That's when I realized, all right, maybe this is something I can do.
Excellent. One of those biggest takeaways I got from Mark's story is it's not necessarily a speech, it's a performance. So those are things to think about whenever you're considering joining. And from all of these panelists, we strongly suggest you ought to join, especially in the level of growth that we have gotten from Toastmasters. Rebecca, do you want to tell your pivot moment?
Absolutely. My pivot moment is a little interesting. As I told you earlier, I came to Midland, Texas in 2007 in a management position. I had no clue what I really was doing. I just did it. I was pretty, as Midwest person, you're very bold and you don't hold back. Well, in management, that's not always the right thing to do. I found out. And as I grew with Midland Memorial Hospital, which turned into Midland Health, I became an administrator in 2018. And I found that it was really important to not just shoot from the hip, if you want to take that thought. And it was a year before 2018, I actually had a professional coach because I felt like I really needed it because I was really rough around the edges. I knew my stuff, but I really didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to present in a way that if I wanted their interest and them to, who was listening to the presentation, really to buy in, really didn't know how to do that. Took a year for me to join Toastmasters because I kept on thinking, I don't need this. Come on, I know how to talk. I know how to present. That's all it is. In 2018, I went to my first meeting at Pop-Up Toastmasters in person. I was at table topics, had no clue what I was doing. I think they felt sorry for me, I'm not sure, but I won table topics that day. I got a ribbon, so I thought, okay, I did it. But I have to tell you, ever since that pivot moment in 2018, I have learned now that there are times to be very straightforward and bold, but there's other times where you need to nurture and learn from your employees and from others. Even in Toastmasters, it's not all about being the leader. Sometimes you have to follow, and you have to learn how to follow in a manner that you don't take over, which is a really hard thing for me to do. Just ask your panel here. They'll tell you. But it has been an experience that I will never forget, and I grow every time that I open my mouth and I am talking with others. I grow, and I have to pivot it to the first day of Toastmasters. Madam Moderator.
That is a very awesome story. It's that balance that I got as a takeaway from you. And knowing when to be bold, direct, and straightforward, that's someone who's myself. Versus when you have to be a little less direct, or you have to be more nurturing, as you talked about. Dawn, do you want to talk about your pivot moment?
Sure. So it was interesting when I was coming over here this morning and thinking about our subject, pivot moments today. I thought a lot about how so many of my pivot moments have come from an aha moment or a bigger opportunity, some momentum. But many more, exponentially more of my pivot moments have come from failure and loss. What's interesting, the pivot moment that's fueled by a win seems very exciting and has a lot of momentum behind it, and you move quickly into your pivot. And the pivot moments I think sometimes are most important in your life, for me, had times of grief and took longer, and I didn't see how critical and important that pivot moment was until I was in retrospect mode. And so I was thinking about that. Pivot moments aren't always brought on by something exciting or wonderful. We have to recognize that even our failures and our loss are very important moments of change in our life. Pivot moment that I want to share with you guys that look back over time was the one that brought me to Texas, not to Midland, but to Texas. And I had been working firefighter medic in Salt Lake City, Utah for quite some time, and I've done it for a decade. And at that point, when you got about a decade in on the ambulance, working in the fire department, you really need to make a career choice to the next level. And I was looking at either becoming a pathway to becoming a fire chief, that's my bachelor degree from the university on that focus, or really the next step was to either go like air med or nursing. And large majority of my friends and colleagues went into nursing. And I just taken a geology course at that was at UVU, and I was volunteering for RMAC, so the Rocky Mountain Association of Geologists. And I met this beautiful woman. She was in her 60s, and she had cascading long gray hair. She was glowing, she was confident, she was beautiful. And she didn't honestly look anything like the nurses I was working with in the emergency rooms. They were very tired and a bit jaded, and they had worked very hard and given themselves completely to others their entire career. They were exhausted. And I looked at her and I said, "What do you do for a living? Like, who are you? What do you do?" And she said, "I own an oil and gas company." And I said, "You own an oil and gas company?" And she said, "Yeah." She looked at me and she said, "Stick with geology, you'll never regret it." And that for me was a pivot moment where I pivoted out of emergency medicine and into the geological sciences, which brought me to Texas. And you know what? I've never regretted it. It's been great. It's only getting better. So yeah, thank you.
Well, awesome, Dawn. And as a fellow oil and gas person myself, I am so glad you have not left geology. But that was an inspiring story of how you came to Texas and what your pivot moment is. So, last but definitely not least, Jeanette.
So my pivot moment starts with an email. This one that I worked with at the memorial about, it's January, I think, January of this year. I get an email from her through LinkedIn saying, "Come join us in Toastmasters." And I knew what Toastmasters was. I had actually wanted to join Toastmasters when I was younger. Family and job and just time constraints kept me from doing that. But I also had a situation in my life that's a very personal situation. I had a family member that was terminally ill. So I wrote back to her, "It's not time for me, maybe later." So in March, knowing that my younger brother had very little time left, I quit a great job, made a decision that definitely was a pivot moment for me. But I knew I wanted to spend time with him. And so I quit my job, resigned, and went out to Mississippi, spent some time with my brother. He passed April 15th. And back in Midland, so here I was, no job, very despondent from the loss of my brother, really trying to grapple with all that had come about. And did what any red-blooded American would do. I launched a small business. And lo and behold, to my surprise, I put it on LinkedIn, and within 24 hours, I had 3 calls from people locally that I had worked with and said, I want to hire you, please come help me do this. Now, I've always been a talker. I've never been one that's been at a loss for words. I was at a loss for words.
Oh, wow.
I panicked. I froze. I was studying at that time for a certification for my business, and one of the chapters was on the role of a CEO, what a CEO did, how they communicated with the public, how they communicated with employees. And it occurred to me, you're a CEO. You just launched this business. So my heart raced, my palms got sweaty. I was a little nauseous. I called my husband and said, I don't have the skills for this. And he said, well, the good news about skills is they can be learned. That very day, to distract myself from some of this physiological response I was having to this new reality, I opened my email, and there it was. Rebecca had sent me an email and said, this is all I said. Are you ready? I couldn't type the words, yes, I'm ready, fast enough. I sent it back to her, and that's how I joined Toastmasters. Now, I have to tell you, I can't believe what joining this group has done for me. My first icebreaker, I'm going to show you what I got from the first, let me turn this on. My first icebreaker, my first talk that I gave to our pop-up, in our pop-up Toastmasters group, I got this as a little prize for doing that. This last week, I was called on for table topics. And I was voted best respondent for that table topics moment. It has helped me get over my frozen state of being able to respond immediately to somebody and really not just talk, but really communicate in a way that is professional, that is focused, and has a real meaning behind it. So that's my pivot moment into Toastmasters. I've been 2 months now, have gotten my icebreaker and a ribbon, and I'm told this morning I'll get another one. So that is several pivot moments for me. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
And thank you, Jeanette. I think I can say this for the rest of the panel, that we are very glad that you have joined us.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're a breath of fresh air and you're a joy.
Thank you for that.
So it should go without being said that I've asked everyone about their pivot moments, that I should talk about my pivot moment too, of why I became a member of Toastmasters. I used to compete in public speaking competitions in high school and in college. When I graduated college, I realized that keeping up with those communication skills, those presentation skills, is a little bit harder than when you have to compete in a competition and when you always have to be on your toes. You can lose those skills pretty quickly if you do not practice them. And I really wanted to find a community. When I moved to Midland, I learned about the Toastmasters group, and I tried emailing online, but for some reason, I wasn't able to get a response, or I couldn't find anybody. But being involved with the Society of Petroleum Engineers, I found a couple members that talked about Toastmasters. We have some members, such as, his name is Flo Akintunji and Ayudeji Daramola, and if you join our group, you will definitely get to meet these folks. And they were talking about the joys of Toastmasters, and that hit a light bulb for me that these are people that I need to connect with. Once I connected with them and they introduced me to the group, I knew I wasn't wrong of joining this community. It's kept me on my communication, my presentations. Whole day, and I know these panelists. And I guess we are still back. I know that we had a pause in our internet, so let me go ahead and pin this. Go ahead in the chat to see if you guys are still there. Let me know, or give a thumbs up. So that is excellent. So once I talked about my pivot moment, I'm going to start testing everybody on their table topics skills. There was a question that I didn't mention in our, oh, I see it from Robert. Glad you're back again. Thank you, Robert. There's a question that I did not write in preparation of some of the questions that I sent them the night before, but it's not a hard one. And I'm gonna play a game of popcorn in which I pick a random panelist instead of going in order. So the question is, name an inspirational person that you've met in Toastmasters. I'm going to give a few seconds for them to think about it before I call on somebody. It might be a hard one because there are many inspirational people at Toastmasters, especially in our group. So I am going to pick Rebecca.
Awesome. I was hoping she was gonna pick me first, because I have to tell you, I've been inspired by many people in Toastmasters, and even outside of Toastmasters that are presented that I really think would benefit to help others in Toastmasters. Last week, we had a speaker. Actually, it was this week. Sorry, this week we had a speaker. And it was amazing the adjectives that she utilized in her speech. It was so vivid and so prepared. There was no filler words. The presentation was spot on. It was humorous. It was serious. It was uplifting. And there was even some heartfelt movements in this speech. And to me, as a recent distinguished Toastmaster, I thought, this is what Toastmasters is all about. This speaker was Dawn Porter. Dawn provided an inspirational, uplifting, humorous speech, actually a presentation of something that every single person, if you would have heard this presentation, would have been, that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be able to do this. Dawn was an inspiration to me. And my goal is to be able to speak and have confidence like Dawn did this week. Way to go.
Wow, thank you. Good job. That's awesome. Rebecca, you mentioned something really interesting in you being a distinguished Toastmaster. Do you want to tell folks what exactly that is and how one can achieve that?
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. The way that you achieve it through Toastmasters International is you complete 2 pathways. Now, doesn't sound too hard. Each pathway has 5 levels. Each level has 3 to 4 items that you must complete. And it is with your Toastmaster club or with Toastmasters in like at higher grounds, as what we're doing today. So you have to complete 2 pathways. You also have to be in leadership. Leadership is within the district. This year, I am the Division East Director. Last year, I was the East area director, so some type of leadership. You also have to mentor a club for at least 6 months. You have to be part of a new club. There are other, I think there's like 10 different elements that you have to do. Now, remember, I started in 2018 and I just received my Distinguished Toastmaster, and thank you. I like that, in July. So it takes a couple years, but it is well worth it. And I'm honored to be with those people. Thank you for asking.
Of course. There's a lot that you can do in Toastmasters that Rebecca just described very briefly. It sounds like a lot, but it just shows you the opportunities that are just waiting for you once you join this club. Jeanette, do you want to talk about your inspirational person?
Actually, I've had many inspirational people since I joined Toastmasters. One of the biggest benefits I've received is the feedback that I get from my prepared speeches that I present to the group. Yoshi, thank you for being so detailed and so kind in the feedback that you've given me for my speech. To get better, we need that type of feedback. It was very targeted. It just really showed me what I need to do to improve and get better. I'm not frozen anymore because I've gotten such good feedback from the group, from Yoshi, who is actually my last evaluator for my speech. And so that for me has been very inspirational since I've come into Toastmasters. The other thing is, I want to talk a little bit about not just one person who's inspirational, but our group. Our group is an international group. I am so impressed by our people from Australia, from India, who join us at 6:30 a.m. our time, which is not 6:30 a.m. at their time, but they make this just heroic effort to be there week after week after week. And to me, that's very inspirational. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. I'm so glad you mentioned the global reach of our organization. We're mostly based in Midland, but the fact that we have attendees from the countries that Jeanette mentioned shows the influence of Toastmasters and the influence of our group. Mark, your turn.
Thank you. My inspiration comes from that same contest I attended in Albuquerque. I met a professional speaker there named Patricia Fripp. She's British, she lives in California. She started off as a hairdresser, so she says when she came to America, all she had was a pair of scissors and a suitcase. And she worked her way into becoming a professional speaker by listening. As she was a hairdresser, she listened to people and learned from them and realized, CEOs whose hair I'm cutting are just like anyone else. And now her job is to coach CEOs who have to give presentations. I believe she's still involved with Toastmasters, but it was amazing that someone I met in Albuquerque who lives in California was able to give me a contact to help me with the class I teach here in Midland. I emailed her and said, this is what I'm looking for. And she set me up with someone who coached me for a couple of paid hours, but then gave, I don't know how many hours beyond that for free. And so I could send him an email or call him. And just that one contact has helped me so much to spread out, not just within Toastmasters, but outside as well.
Excellent. It's always great when you think about that one person that was probably another pivot moment that you had. So that's really awesome. Carol?
I would like to say that all of you all in this room, plus everyone in our club, is an inspiration to me. We had the great privilege, I don't remember what year it was, to go to an international convention. It was in Cincinnati, so I want to piggyback on what you said. we were meeting in person, so it was a long time ago, probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. Our daughter's family was stationed at Fort Knox, and we had our grandson, and we drove him back to Fort Knox, and then we continued on to Cincinnati for that international convention, which lasts, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. And two of the people there, Janet and Bob Barnhill, both past international presidents, attended. And Bob was actually our contestant for the international speech contest from our district. This man has since passed. He was suffering from Lou Gehrig's. He got up and gave a speech in the small room, because you compete by regions, and gave an international speech as his contest speech. And it was so inspiring to me to know that no matter where you are in your life, because he obviously had been a Toastmaster for a very long time, you can be present, you can be around other people, you can be around other nations, because we had a parade of flags, I think it was, of all the countries that were represented. And I would have to say, if you can go online, Toastmasters International, you might be able to see some of this past international convention. This year and last year were both virtual. I think those are still available. But in between that, I also got to attend a business meeting. Let me tell you, and I was the voting member from our club. That was my main reason to go, was to go cast the vote instead of sending a proxy to someone else. That meeting was run like no other business meeting I have ever been to or since. Very, very organized. They also had many speakers from all around the world that gave presentations and workshops. My husband, who is not a Toastmaster, got dragged along. He paid his admission so he could go with me. And I think he enjoyed some of those presentations. So I would say beyond our club, which is very inspirational to me and has been for many years, there's a whole world of Toastmasters, and we have several from other countries who are continue to visit ours. So in a way, we have become an international club, if you will, and a moderator.
I've been inspired just by hearing that, Carol. That is excellent. And makes me more thankful every single day that I've joined Toastmasters. And last but definitely not least, Dawn.
I wanna go check out those business meetings now. I don't know. So in my pivot moment, I didn't have a chance to quite share how I got into Toastmasters, but that will also lead to some inspiration I've had since I joined. I joined Toastmasters. I've been to, I went to a few different Toastmasters meetings over the last 5-6 years. Never went back a second time. And when I came to Midland, someone suggested that it was a great place to network. If you're new in town and you want to network, join Pop-Up Toastmasters. It's a very famous club. They said it was a very old club, and it was a great place to meet local people in Midland. Also, I had physiological responses to speaking. It's not just a mental fear. My throat will close up, and I can't get any voice out. I get stuck. And I had very strong physiological responses that paralyze me when I try to speak. And I am not a morning person. I'm not really a night person either. I'm more of a rock 11 a.m. kind of person. Yeah. So I always look for ways to grow in my weakest areas. I joined Pop-Up Toastmasters, and I went to, as a guest, as anybody in the world can join us when we do it, because we're online right now. They can join our group. I showed up to Toastmasters in Midland early in the morning. Nancy showed me where to go because I was running late because it was early, and had a very wonderful experience. What kept me going back the second time and the third time and the 100th time, probably now, it's been 2 years, was Rebecca. Rebecca has the best follow-up of anyone I've ever met in my entire life. She will email you, call you, she will give you prizes, which raises your dopamine level and makes you feel good.
I stalk you, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you find me. Yeah, she'll find you if you don't come, and she'll want to know why you didn't come. And she's genuinely, authentically shows love and wants to see you succeed and is a cheerleader for every single person in our club. And then she did another thing that kept me coming back, other than your great follow-up. You gave me a job. When you give someone a job, they feel very obligated to do a job. So what's really interesting about Toastmasters is as soon as you get involved, even as a guest sometimes, you get jobs to do. And just like you said, the feedback sometimes, being a great evaluator is just as important as being a great speaker.
Sure.
So thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate you every day.
Thank you. I can give anybody a job. I learned that from Toastmasters.
That's excellent. Job security is great.
Yes.
Well, we want to, since we have 10 minutes left in our power hour of pivot moments panel, we want to give our audience the chance to ask some questions. So feel free to blow up the chat box as much as possible. We have a couple pieces of activity going on. But in the meantime, while you guys are thinking about your questions, Rebecca, do you want to talk about how one can join Toastmasters? We talked about that a little bit in our panel, but how can one join Toastmasters?
Well, I'm gonna give a little bit, but then I'm gonna move it over to our Vice President of Membership, who really can tell you how to join, but we'll do this together. Absolutely. Reach out to us through LinkedIn, through Yoshi, myself, send it through chat right now. You can look us up, just Google Toastmasters International and type in search pop-up Toastmasters and you'll find us. But what's a better way of doing that, Dawn? How can they join?
How can they join? Yeah, you don't have to join Pop-Up. If you want to join the best club in the world, you're going to join Pop-Up Toastmasters.
Right.
But you're very welcome to join many of the other wonderful, wonderful clubs. And you can do that by finding one local to where you live. And if you'd like to join ours, you don't have to live in Midland. You can live. We don't have anybody in Russia in our club yet. We don't have anybody in Italy. Anybody can join. No one from Mississippi. We don't. So we accept absolutely everyone into the club. You can contact us directly through the avenues you talked about.
Right.
Right? Like,
right. I mean, you can email us if you want to email, and I'm going to give you the email. You want to give them your Toastmaster? Let me give you my Toastmaster email.
we put it in the chat.
Okay, let's put it in the chat.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. So it's R Pontoski.
Pontoski.
Hold on. D23
D23
@gmail.com.
@gmail.com.
That is my division director email that will go directly to me, which then I will let my buddy over here, my VP of membership, send you the information. Please don't be shy. Even if you don't want to join and you just want to see how we run a meeting, please email me. We'll send you the link. You can join us at 6:30 in the morning. And we have a great time. So please don't hesitate. Back to you.
Excellent. Now we got some questions rolling after that icebreaker.
Yes.
So we got a question from Diane. How much does it cost to join Toastmasters?
Great question.
Priceless.
Well, it is priceless, yes.
Well,
However,
it's cheaper than a coach.
yes, it's cheaper than a coach, I have to tell you, because I've gone down that route. It is the first time, if you are a first-time person that has never joined Toastmasters in your life, there is a fee of $20 just for Toastmasters. And then there's an additional fee of $57 for Toastmaster International and your dues. And so what is that,
57.
Bus fare.
57. I think the total comes to
$77.
$77 the first time. And then after that, it's $57 every 6 months, but it's worth it.
Awesome. We got another question from Robert Estes, and he says, what is the name of your club? I know we've been saying pop-ups a lot,
What's
so
our name?
Mr. President.
It's Pop-Up Toastmasters. So pop-up, like Pop-Tarts.
like toast.
Yep, pop-up Toastmasters.
And it might be pop-up toasters, Toastmasters.
Yes.
I'm not sure how it's set up.
Go,
Go by both.
What else? We got some more questions too from Diane. Do you have to be there at every meeting? What if you can't make it all the time?
You know, that's a great question, and so this is where I usually take over because that's just my personality. So somebody, you know, just nudge me if you don't want me to answer. No, you don't have to be there. You don't have to be at the meeting every week. It's nice if you have a job to be there because we rely on you, maybe the all counter or the grammarian or the vote counter. But we understand life takes over and we don't want Toastmasters to be number one. I heard a division director once say, Toastmasters should not be number one. Family should be number one. Remember that.
Yeah.
All right, somebody else answer the other question.
The other thing I would say is on our particular meetings, we typically have 2 or 3 prepared speakers and 2 or 3 evaluators. So you're looking at 4 to 6 people right there. All the other roles that are encompassed in a meeting, we need about 10 to 12 people to attend that have a role. Otherwise, you're doubling up.
Yeah.
It is not mandatory that you be there every week because we have people that travel, we have people that have to be out of town. We've had Dawn join us from an airplane as she was getting ready to leave town or come back, I don't remember which.
Yep.
So if you can join us now that we're online, you may take your phone with you and join us via your phone, email if you wish.
Or your iPad.
Or your iPad, yes.
And there's no mandatory rules,
No, there
everything's
is not.
voluntary.
Yes, that's true, yeah.
A fun fact, I gave a speech while driving to work.
That's
You can literally attend from anywhere.
But it is not a requirement.
Yeah, not a requirement.
You don't take roles.
Yeah. Well, we got more questions going on. So this is specific to petroleum engineering, but I'm gonna speak for the recording's sake, this is gonna be for college students. Are there any suggestions for free final year college students? So does anyone have any suggestions of their free final year and college, maybe for communication skills and presentation skills
Absolutely, I
standpoint?
think, you know, you need to take this for real life. College is college, and I've gone through many levels of college, and it's so important, but when you get out there in the real life, you're gonna need tips and tricks that help you.
Yes.
Communication, leadership, how to poise. How do you even speak to your neighbor in a way that you're communicating so they understand what you're needing? Those kind of things. Listen to the news and just listen how they speak. I cannot listen to the news because all I hear is ahs and ums, and think about the disruption that their message is trying to get across. It's very destructive.
If you're still in college, you might actually contact Toastmasters. I think our Lubbock clubs, one was part of Texas Tech for a while. So it may be that your college has the Toastmasters
Mhm.
club.
Yeah.
You're welcome to come join us.
Yes, awesome. And I'm gonna say this, now whenever I hear people talk, one thing you will learn about Toastmasters is you keep a mental tally on how many ums, so's, and no's, and all the filler words. That is a symptom.
It is.
I will definitely tell you that.
Looks like somebody has a Toastmaster background going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions coming on, so
Wonderful.
will someone teach us how to prepare for a speech in whatever role you may get?
I will answer that
For that,
question,
Jeanette.
because I just learned this, since I am so new. There are so many online resources. If you have a pathway, you choose a pathway. Mine happens to be dynamic leadership. When I went into my pathway and discovered how many resources there are available to me, I was shocked and amazed because my first icebreaker I did without knowing that those resources were there. My second prepared speech was so much better because I used the resources that were available to me. Very structured outlines about how to go about preparing your speech and how to present your speech. The other thing that I really, really enjoy in learning the different roles is that information is also out there in your resources. Like I just sent, I'm speaking Tuesday at our meeting for the third time. So I was able to send my evaluator their form so that they could evaluate me. I also included in that, here are my goals. I want this feedback from you. So there are many, many resources out there online, as well as through all the mentors that you have within your group.
And that's what I was gonna say, is their mentorship.
Yes.
There are several of us that get mentored. Carol was my mentor, and she still is my mentor. I'm her mentor too, but that's what it is. It's a partnership.
Yes.
Because nobody fails, everybody grows.
Yes.
Excellent.
And our club is very good at assigning you a mentor when you join, so that you're not left
Oh,
out
yeah.
in the wild. blue
Yes,
yonder.
this is very true. I have a mentor. Becca is my mentor. And as Dawn said earlier, she's with you every step of the way. I think my first guest meeting, she assigned me a role. So I learned how to be an all-counter in my first meeting, which really helped because it really alleviated some of my anxiety about being in a group of new people. It gave me a role, gave me a focus, something to focus on and think about, other than I knew
Right.
and kind of shy about being around people. I don't know who muted me, but we have time for one more question.
It says you're muted.
Oh. Yeah, now I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Now we have time for one more question. Can teenagers join, or is there a special group just for them?
May I?
Yes.
There is a special
Yeah.
project for teenagers. I've been looking for a group to really start this with. You can do a gavel club, or you can do, it's a youth leadership club. Both have a guide in how that all works. You have my email in the chat, happy to send you some information, but yes, they start early. I talk to my granddaughter about this all the time, and she's like, you know, our school really needs this.
But it's a special club.
Yes, it is a special club. There's no reason that a teenager can't come with their parent to our club, but they can't join our club. There are until they're 18.
Awesome. Well, I lied a little bit because I kind of want to answer this question, or have this entire group answer this question. What will we be discussing at our next Toastmaster panel?
Well, stay tuned, because you never know. We love it. And we hope that you send us ideas. Wouldn't that be great?
That is an
Yes.
excellent idea. I mean, we are huge fans of having setups like these. And by just listening to these panelists, I think you know how much they love to communicate and to present, and Toastmasters makes us that way. Well, I guess with all of that being said, we want to thank all of you for attending, and for those who are going to watch this recording, thank you so much for watching this recording. I mean, it's been a wonderful start, and this panel is just given loads and loads of information that even I need to digest some of it, because I learned some new things here. And I've been a member for a little over a year and a half. That being said, thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you for the attendance, and I will hope to see you in the next panel.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Stop.
You might want to go copy the chat before